Welcome to Creatively Optimized, the podcast for service businesses ready to shine online. I'm Jenny Belanger, the founder of Jenny B Designs, a web design studio that builds strategic and beautiful websites that are designed to book you ideal clients and make you money. With over 10 years of growing my own design business, I'm here to share tips to creatively optimize your business. Get ready to learn web design strategies for high converting websites, digital marketing tactics to reach ideal customers, and systems to simplify operations. If you're ready to blend creativity and strategy, you're in the right place. Join me on this journey to creatively optimize your unique business. Let's do this. When it comes to websites, most small businesses spend the majority of their time and energy focused on all those obvious pieces, like designing an attractive website, a nice visual interface that's easy to use, with compelling copy that really promotes their online home with the world and shares their brand visibility. But underneath all of that, there's a lot of technical elements that often get overlooked. And I typically share episodes pertaining to the website design side of things. And I thought today it might be interesting to kind of give you a peek into other mistakes that can happen on the technical side of things that you can look out for and make sure that you are aware of. This episode applies to both those with a WordPress website, because that is what I design and build in, and a lot of my clients use, but also to other website platforms such as Squarespace and Wix. Not all of these tips will apply to you, but you will get a lot of good information. So I encourage you to listen in, even if you don't use WordPress. For those of you who haven't already met me, my name is Jenny B. I own Jenny B Designs, a brand and web design studio, and I just really love helping other small businesses build a website that reflects your brand personality, attracts your ideal clients, and makes you money. So let's get into it. I have 11 mistakes that I'm going to share with you. And I decided just to press record and go for it, because the more I sat here, the more things I came up with, and I don't want to be too overwhelming. But I figured that these 11 things you might not particularly know about, and it would be really helpful for you to understand. The first mistake that I have on my list here is bad hosting. And for those of you who are not in the WordPress world, this doesn't apply to you. But if you do have a WordPress website, you need to have a company that hosts your website. This is, you can compare it to a place that you are renting land from. Your website is the house, and you are renting land to put your website on. That is your host provider. There are so many out there. I'm sure you've heard of GoDaddy and Bluehost and WP Engine, and the list goes on and on. I will say that having a good quality host truly matters. It matters in terms of your site speed, in your site performance, your site security. But in my mind, what's actually most important to me is the customer service ends of things. I want a host provider that I know will help me figure things out. And I've had experiences with so many hosting providers out there. And I'll tell you, good customer service is hard to come by. I really want to be able to reach out and get an answer and get help, and not have to pay extra money or get routed through 10 billion chatbots just to get to an actual person who, and then in turn, will be able to help me. For my clients, I typically recommend that they use ICDsoft. It is a hosting provider that I use and love. I find that their pricing is competitive, and they have good speed, good security, but most importantly, amazing customer service. For my clients who have larger sites, then sometimes I direct them to WP Engine. If you're out there and you're wondering where to go to, those are two that I highly recommend. The other ones that I mentioned, and those ones that are more familiar, I am not a huge fan of them. Back in the day, they used to be great hosting providers, but I found that customer service and quality has kind of gone downhill. So the ones that I tend to recommend are ICDsoft and WP Engine. I'll link them below in case you are looking for a hosting provider. Number 2 is, and this applies same for if you have a WordPress website, not taking backups. And this is hugely important. If you are on a quality hosting plan, like I mentioned, your hosting plan most likely will be taking backups. Now, how many days back are they keeping? That I am not sure. For my clients, I actually like to see 60 to 90 days back. The reason being is that sometimes something can go wrong on your website and you don't log in every single day. And when you finally do log in, you notice that something isn't working properly. And so in that case, what we need to do is roll to a backup to a point in time where your website was working. If you're not like logging in every week or every month, in fact, then we do want to have a fair amount of backups that we can pull from so that we know we can get to a place where the website was actually working for you before something happened. If your hosting provider has backups, that's wonderful. If you don't know, I encourage you to log in and check it. And if you want to be extra safe, I love using plugins. There's Updraft, which is a great backup plugin. You can install that and then you can take backups of your website and you can save it to Google Drive or you could save it to any other place where you typically save your files just to have another copy here and there. You can't have too many backups. If you don't know if your website is being backed up or if you're unsure of how many days backups are being taken place, log into your hosting provider and find out. For all the other websites, Squarespace, Showit, Wix, I am not an expert in, but I believe that they do have a way to roll back to a backup without you having to do anything. Mistake number 3 is don't let your domain name expire. This is so important. So important. And this is because if you happen to lose your domain name, maybe you don't have the auto renew button on your domain for it to renew automatically every year, and you lose it. There are companies and people out there who are just waiting to snatch it up. And if they buy it, they might want to sell it to you for some crazy money, or maybe they don't even want to sell it back to you, and they'll keep it and you will lose your domain. You will lose not only your website's domain, but your email and perhaps your team's email. It's so important to make sure that whatever company you have your domain registered with, I always suggest Namecheap, which I'll link down below, log in and just make sure that the auto renewal is on there so that it does get renewed every single year without you having to do anything. Mistake number 4, not redirecting your URLs. And what do I mean by that? Let's think of your website and perhaps you had a web page on your site that was for a specific service and you no longer offer that service anymore. But perhaps a lot of people going to that page and looking at that service, or perhaps you just promoted it in lots of different places. The same could apply to an event. Maybe you had an event and you shared it in lots of different locations and the event has passed by. You no longer leave that page, but that URL is kind of out in the world. What I want you to do is if you are going to delete the page that you no longer need, I want you to set up a redirect. And what I mean by that is when someone types the original URL that they were planning to go to, let's give me as an example. I had a URL for a VIP day that I shared out there with so many different people and organizations. And I decided that I no longer wanted to offer that VIP model. I took the VIP page down because I didn't want people to find it since I no longer offer that service. However, I knew that a lot of people had that link, and I didn't necessarily want them to click that link and then get to a 404 page, which means, that page that says this content is no longer here, or like, oops, you made a mistake. While it can be fun to have people get to that page if you design a fun one, I don't want that to happen because I know a lot of people have that link. What I want to do is redirect that URL that people are planning to go to and send them to a new page, either a different service or the home page, or maybe even a page that explains, I'm no longer doing this. Or if we're talking about that event example, it could say, this event has already passed. Why don't you check out this event or this event? Those pages that you no longer need and you take down, I encourage you to redirect the URL to go somewhere else. And how do you do this? Let's talk about WordPress first. If you have a WordPress site, there are plugins. I typically use, I think it's called Redirect 301. You install that plugin, and then all you have to do is give the URL that people were going to, that you are deciding to take down, and the new URL that you want to direct them to. And then the plugin does the rest. Therefore, no one ends up on that 404 page, and it's a much nicer journey for your visitors. For people who are not using WordPress, this can be done on the domain level. Go back to, as I mentioned, the company that owns your domain. Whatever that company is, like we mentioned before, for my clients, a lot of time it's Namecheap. You can log in to that domain name and you can set up redirects. And right from that area where you have that domain name, you can set up a redirect. When someone wants to go to this page, please send them to this page. I encourage you to think about that. If you take down a page that you don't no longer need, try adding a redirect. Number 5. This is not allowing your website to be read by search engines. This is for my WordPress people out there. What this is a setting. If you go into your WordPress dashboard, you go to the left under settings and you go to reading. Down the bottom, there is a button that says search engine visibility. And if the button is clicked on, it says discourage search engines from indexing this site. You want that button to be clicked off. So make sure that that button is off and you save your changes. Because if you don't, your website will not be visible to search engines. And then you won't be appearing in search. And all your effort will be stunted for your website. Make sure if you have a WordPress site that the discourage search engines from indexing this site is not checked off. Next one, not attributing content when you remove a user from WordPress. This one is key. And this came onto my list because I was removing a staff member from one of my clients' websites. And let me tell you the process, what happened. When you have users on your WordPress website, and I encourage you to make sure that that user list is small, everyone has their own login, and they have a very secure password. But if someone is no longer needing to log into your website, I want you to go ahead and delete that user. When you go through that process, if that user has created anything, such as blog posts or pages or anything like that, if you aren't changing where the content is attributed to, for example, when I went to delete Sally from my client's website, it said, attribute all of Sally's content to, and it gave me a listing of all the other users on the website. I selected a user, and what it did is it attributed that content to that user. If you do not do that, if you don't attribute that content to a user that is still active, everything that that person created will be deleted from the website. And that is such a big deal. Because perhaps you have a virtual assistant who's been helping you write blog posts and they've been going in and adding them and logging them in. But then you no longer work with that virtual administrator. You delete them from the list. And if you don't do this last step, all of the content that they've written for you will be deleted from the website. So keep this in mind as you are removing users, that you want to make sure that you are attributing that content to someone else so you don't lose it. Next mistake, not removing demo content from your website. And this applies to whatever platform that you have. This is so important. It's kind of like one of my pet peeves, and it's the first thing that I usually look at. What this means, let's talk about the WordPress side. Sometimes when you get a template or a theme from WordPress, it comes with that demo content, just so you can see how things work and how they look. And what you do is you go through the site and you put in your own pictures and you change the copy and things like that. Same goes for Squarespace and all the other programs. You have the demo content and you change everything out. What I find tends to happen, and most specifically in the footer, is that people forget to remove the demo content. Social media icons. This is what I see most frequently. If you scroll down to the bottom of a website where the social media icons are, and that's where they should be, not at the top. There are so many reasons for that. I could go make a whole other episode. You want to have those social media icons in the footer, if anywhere. When you scroll down and you look at those social media icons, a lot of times people tend to forget to replace the URL with their own social content. This happens so many times, I think on Wix and Squarespace. I'll go to someone's website, scroll down to the bottom, and those social media icons, if you click it, will just take you to the Wix social media site or Squarespace. Not removing the demo content if you don't need it. Same goes for pages on your website. If you are on Squarespace and you're creating a new website and it's giving you, maybe 7 pages to start and you only need 4, but you leave those additional pages out there thinking that no one's going to be able to access them. chances are they are probably linked somewhere or a search engine's going to pick them up and they will be visible to the outside. If you aren't using a page and it has demo content, I encourage you to delete it and make sure that you're going through all your pages and ensuring that all the content has your information on it and not the demo on there. Okay, next up is not optimizing your images. I talk about this a lot. I used to say, go visit the panda, tiny PNG. When you have a website, you need to ensure that it has the smallest file sizes possible, but keeping good quality, because that reflects in your speed of the site and how search engines view you and how your visitors actually access your website. When you upload a photo to your site, chances are it's either a photo that you maybe took with your iPhone, perhaps you had branded photos taken, or you downloaded a stock image. All three are great, but all three have large photo sizes. The file size is actually truly large. And you want to get that file size compressed as much as possible without losing the quality of that picture. If you can, I suggest that you visit a URL such as TinyPNG or a bulk resizer. I can link those two below, and upload your image to that website, and then it will compress it, and then you download it. And from there, you can add it to your website. By doing this, it makes sure that you're uploading the smallest file size possible, and your website will run much quicker because of it. And this doesn't matter what platform you're using. It's always good practice to downsize your photos before you upload them to your website. The next mistake is for my WordPress friends, too many plugins. This happens a lot. Plugins are really cool, really nifty, and so easy to add. Actually, while we're talking about this, you could add a plugin to help your photos compress. But I don't like to add plugins because I don't like to add things to my website. I like to do it natively. You want to make sure you have as few plugins as possible. Every single plugin is a piece of software. It's working behind the scenes with your website so that everything is working together in harmony. These plugins require updates. You need to update the software of the plugin. Every time you do that, there is a possible chance that there could be a conflict with your website and the plugin, or with a plugin and another plugin. I encourage my clients to have as few plugins as possible, and when I build a site, I try to do this as well. Whatever I can build natively into the WordPress site, I try to do. And of course, there are some plugins that you absolutely need. For me and my clients, we need Elementor and Elementor Pro. That's how I build the website. And I do use a cookie plugin telling people that we are tracking their cookies. But beyond that, I try to keep it really clean and simple. If you can, log into your website and check how many plugins you have. And if there's anything that can be consolidated, I definitely suggest that you do that. The next mistake is not updating your website, not updating the plugins, not updating the software. Like I said, these pieces of software, both the plugins and WordPress itself, it needs to be constantly updated to avoid security breaches and to avoid conflicts. They are always releasing patches for things that are happening out there and to make the system work a little bit better. You want to make sure that you're staying on top of all of these updates and that you are updating your website. I tend to update my websites about a week or two after they release the plugin update, unless it's a critical update, in which case I will do it immediately. But I tend to let things settle for a tiny bit before I go about updating. But you want to make sure that you're staying up to date. How many times can I say update? That you are making sure that you're staying up to date with the latest pieces of software for each element of your website. That's really, really important. And finally, the last one, number 11, applies to everyone, is not installing a way to track analytics. For most people, this is setting up Google Analytics, GA4. People are very familiar with this. Google Analytics kind of has a monopoly on that whole analytics world. And it is an easy piece of software to install in your website. Typically, there's a little piece of code that you have to add to your header, and there's a place to add it on all different platforms, Squarespace, Showit, and WordPress. However, I will say with the transition of GA4, I find that dashboard a little bit hard to use. It's not easy to get the information that we used to get from Google Analytics just by logging in. And I will say that Google Analytics doesn't have a strong eye on privacy and security. I've been kind of investigating other options for my clients. I will say that mostly we do still use Google Analytics. For myself, I have been using microanalytics.io. Microanalytics, you just do the same thing. You add a little piece of code to the header, and they have a large focus on security and not tracking cookies. They give you the information that we need, but they don't give out the information that Google is collecting to others, like Google tends to do. It's a really simple dashboard. It's free to a small amount of hits, and then after that, you do pay a small amount every month. But it's just easy to use, and it has a strong focus on privacy. And I've really been enjoying using them over the last few months. I'm not sure if I'm going to keep it going in the long term and switch away from GA4 entirely, but that's what I've been playing with. Phantom Analytics is also another good one out there as well. If you do some digging, you'll find that there are more privacy-focused analytics softwares out there that you can use versus a simple Google Analytics for. And there you go. That was my list of 11 mistakes that you don't want to make on your website. Do a quick recap right here. The first one is bad hosting. Next, take backups. Third, don't let your domain name expire. Fourth, doing redirects. 5, not having your site readable by search engines. 6, removing a user and not attributing their content. 7, not removing the demo content. 8, not optimizing your images. 9, too many plugins. 10, not updating your website. And 11, not installing any way to track analytics. I hope you got a lot out of this list. There is a lot out there that I just mentioned, and these are all important. But if there is one that I think is the most important, it probably is don't let your domain expire. Because if you lose it, it's really, really hard to get back. All right, and there you go. If you have any questions about what's going on behind the scenes with your website, or you are thinking about perhaps digging into what you got going on and looking towards a website redesign project, I would love to hear from you. Happy to help point you in the right direction. Thanks for listening. I'll see you next time. Thanks so much for listening to this podcast all the way to the end. I really appreciate you being here. Please make sure to subscribe to the podcast, rate, review, and share it with someone else you know it can help. If you like this episode, then I want to invite you to visit jennybedesigns.com, where you'll find videos and resources to help make your current website work even harder for you. And if you're feeling like your current website doesn't truly reflect you or your brand today, it's not attracting your ideal clients or making sales, or maybe you just feel embarrassed by it and it's holding your business back, then reach out. I'd love to help you design a website that truly reflects you, works for you 24/7, bringing in those ideal clients and making you money. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time for another new episode.